The stock market is lying to you, and this is pattern behavior for the market. The market always plays with investors' psychology and emotions, and quite often, the market ends up doing exactly the opposite of what investors expect to happen. And this is what I'm going to talk about in today's video because I see a lot of people falling victim to this just on the other end of the spectrum in relation to what we've seen in the past. Today was another typical day, which is why I'm wearing my red shirt today, where most of our favorite stocks here, most of retail investors' favorite stocks were down on the day, where the broad market indices were up for the most part. And I think everybody generally has an idea of why this is, and it all involves investors selling out of their losing investments to offset their gains and not have to pay so much in tax, and then they end up buying back into these stocks about 30 days later. Again, I think everybody's on the same page with this. I think most people have a general idea that this is what's going on. Now, this is setting us up for a really nice Santa Claus rally, basically where the stock market and stocks rally up until Christmas and then shortly after Christmas. This is because of investors selling out of their losing investments now with the hopes of buying back in about 30 days down the road after the wash sale rule no longer applies. But what exactly do I mean when I say the stock market is lying to you? I'm going to get into that, but first off, if you guys are new here or returning and not yet subscribed, I would greatly appreciate you hitting that subscribe button down below. My channel's been growing like crazy lately, and I can't thank you guys enough for that. Anyways, along the lines of that, I've been put in a very privileged situation here on YouTube, where I'm at the forefront and I can see what everybody is talking about in regards to the stock market on a daily basis in my comment section, on my social media, etc. And the thing I've seen so much lately is people saying, I'm selling out of all of my small and mid-cap growth stocks and going all in on large-cap stocks. And some people actually have already done this, and they say it's the best decision they've ever made. But this is dangerous thinking, because I've already covered that the stock market usually does the exact opposite of what investors believe is going to happen in the future. In other words, the stock market gets investors to chase what's hot, but then they flip it around. And those stocks that were supposed to be hot actually underperform, whereas these stocks that are set to underperform actually end up overperforming. Think about it. When did small and mid-cap stocks begin to crash this year? It was when quite literally everybody and their mom were throwing money and everything into small cap and mid-cap growth stocks. That's when it all flipped, and those sorts of stocks began to tank and to crash and to dip. The same can be said in the opposite scenario. Last year, after the pandemic, when was it that stocks began their historical rise? It was right after investors' common consensus was that the world economy was shutting down and all stocks were going to crash much lower than they already had. That is the exact moment when stocks restarted the recovery and began that historical rise. Now, this all paints the picture that the markets almost always do the opposite of what investors are thinking is going to happen. This is how the big money managers make money. But before I get into this too heavily, I do want to say that I am not against owning large cap stocks. In fact, I believe every portfolio should have large caps in them. But the issue is everybody seems to be going all in on large cap stocks because they're what's hot. They are what are supposed to perform the best over the next year. To put it simply, recognizing things like this is what separates good investors from great investors. There's a reason Warren Buffett talks about fear and greed so much, and there's a reason that if you listen to that philosophy, you usually can outperform the broader market. By buying in times when people are in fear, think last year during the pandemic, nobody expected the stocks to rise, because everybody was in fear. But guess what happened? The stocks began a historical move to the upside. Also, some people forget about the other side of this equation, to be fearful when others get greedy. This is what we're talking about right now. It seems that people are getting a bit greedy on large caps, and I'll show you valuations to back up that statement. It is pretty clear that investors are greedy in regards to large cap companies right now. And again, in this scenario, just think to January or February of this year, when the small cap, mid cap growth companies began their crash. That was when everybody was the most greedy, the most bullish on those types of companies. So basically wrapping up the last 5 minutes of this video, the markets tend to do the opposite of what investors think the markets are going to do. And now we're going to look at these valuations. And we look at large caps, which is the top graph here, mid caps, which is the middle graph here, and small caps, which is the bottom graph here. When we look at large caps, we can see that this isn't normal. We haven't seen valuations on large caps since the tech bubble, since I was born. That's crazy. I'm 20 years old. We have not seen large caps have valuations this high in 20 years. And guess what happened? Guess what followed? It corrected. The large caps, they fell in valuation. But then when we scroll down and look at mid caps, we can see that their valuations currently are more in line with what we've seen historically. So you could say that these are slightly undervalued in general. The valuations are probably slightly lower than the average over the past 25 years or so. But then if we scroll down even further to small caps, this is where it gets pretty crazy. We can see historically right now, small caps are undervalued. It's not a case of, oh, they're slightly undervalued. No, looking at these valuations, small caps right now are undervalued. And right now, if you're thinking that the deals are in the large cap stocks, you are just simply wrong. According to valuations, according to any valuation metric you look at, small caps and mid caps in general are where the opportunities lie in today's market. And this is how the stock market is lying to you. Because right now everybody wants to go all in on large caps because they've performed the best in 2021. And they're supposed to perform the best in 2022. So everybody's piling into these stocks, but when we take a step back and look at valuations, we can see that maybe that's not the best deal right now. The best deals are in small caps and mid caps. And again, whenever this gets out of whack, it corrects itself. Whenever valuations get too high, they come back down. Whenever valuations get too low, they come back up. And right now I'm going to make a prediction. I don't know if I'm going to be right about it, but next year my prediction is that large caps are pretty much going to be flat throughout the year, whereas mid caps and small caps, basically the Russell stocks, are going to outperform the markets. Basically an exact opposite scenario of what we saw in 2021. Again, I may be way wrong on this, but just taking a step back and looking at this, looking at history, looking at investor psychology and emotions right now, this is my conclusion. Now, maybe another once-in-a-lifetime pandemic hits us next year again, and all stocks underperform. Those are variables I cannot control. Those are variables I cannot predict. So, outside of those scenarios, I strongly believe that mid caps and small caps are going to outperform next year. And it's the stocks, the large caps that everybody is piling into right now. Those are the ones that are likely going to underperform the markets because their valuations right now simply just can't keep going up. Their valuations are going to have to fall back down. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean the stock prices have to fall. That can mean that their earnings per share catches up to their share price, which in turn decreases these forward PE ratios. So again, I'm predicting large caps to have a flat 2022, while mid caps and small caps generally outperform the rest of the market. In conclusion, do the opposite of what most people are expecting to happen in most cases. Warren Buffett has stuck to this philosophy and he's been the most successful investor of all time. This isn't a secret, but it's very difficult to do because it's difficult in today's day and age to go against the pack, to go against what's cool and what's hot right now is investing in large cap stocks because they've outperformed small caps and mid caps throughout 2021. Now, the fact that everybody is piling into the large caps, everybody expects them to outperform next year, makes me believe that the opposite is about to happen, where small caps and mid caps are going to outperform. Now, before I end this video, I want to hear from you down in the comment section below. What do you think about this? Do you think that I'm right in my thesis? Do you think I'm wrong? I want to hear your thoughts on this because we can agree to disagree. We can have different opinions, but that's what ultimately makes this so great, where we can have discussions, where we can compare thoughts and ultimately come to our own conclusions. We don't have to rely on somebody else's words in making our own investment decisions. In fact, I hope there's some of you out there that disagree with what I'm saying here, because that's a good thing. And if you made it this far into the video, that's also a good thing, because it means you're open to hearing an alternative point of view. And that's where you're going to be the most successful, where you can see it from multiple different angles, but then develop your own angle. And then typically you're going to outperform the markets in most years. Now, again, if you guys are new here or returning and not yet subscribed, I would greatly appreciate you hitting that subscribe button down below. If you enjoyed this video, if you enjoy these types of videos, please feel free to hit that like button. Feel free to share this video with other investors out there that you think might be interested in this topic. With that, have a great rest of your day. I'll be back with a brand new video later this week. If you don't stop back by my channel before Thanksgiving, I hope you have a great Thanksgiving and a blessed Thanksgiving. But with that, peace out.